once, my ass.
I'm only 4. Bonjour, Monsieur Pussycat.
Cracking toast, Robert.
Start spreading the news.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the short podcast about short films. I'm your host, and we are discussing the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. Today's episode is about the 5th year of the award at the 9th Academy Awards, which celebrates the films of 1936. Today's guest has been on our show before, discussing Three Little Pigs and the nominees from 1932 and 1933. She is the host of the 300 Passions podcast and is also the best short in all of our hearts. It is Zita Short. Welcome back to the show, Zita.
Oh, thank you for having me back on. I've been looking forward to this.
Well, thank you for coming back. It is a pleasure to have you back on here. And just after how great your last episode was, I'm sure today's will be just as good.
Yes.
And remind us, how familiar are you with the Best Animated Short category?
Not familiar at all. The other year that I covered is the only one where I've seen all of them. I have very little knowledge of who directed these films and what the production of them was like. So I'm sort of coming in blind. You have all of this background knowledge and you've done extensive research, and I'm just watching these films essentially in a vacuum.
Well, that's the beauty of this show. It's just like I get to introduce people to all these somewhat obscure short films and get more eyes on them because, some of them deserve to be seen. Some of them don't, but, we'll get to that. But these certainly have a quite diverse lineup in terms of good and bad shorts here, I'd say. But let's not delay any further. We have 3 nominees to discuss today. Our first nominee and the year's winner is The Country Cousin, directed by Wilfred Jackson. This is the 8th nomination and 5th consecutive win in this category for Walt Disney, winning every year of the category so far, including with last year's 3 Orphan Kittens. This is also the 6th nomination and 5th win for the Silly Symphonies franchise. The Country Cousin is based on the fable of the town mouse and the country mouse, telling the story of a rural mouse visiting his cousin in the city and enjoying a feast provided by him, though keeps making noises that might alarm the humans or their cat. Zita, start us off. What did you think of The Country Cousin?
So my fascination with this one is just that the story seems so condensed. I get it's obviously a short film. It's only 9 minutes long. This one did feel conceptually lacking. In my eyes. I wanted there to be a little bit more plot, and I did feel like it really fell off during the midsection of the story, where I understand they're meant to be sort of meandering. There are a bunch of whimsical hijinks that they get involved in, but I felt as though there needed to be something more substantial undergirding all of the whimsical content.
I felt pretty much the same. Like the short has like about a minute of setup when you first see the cousin come in. It has a minute at the end where it's just like you run into the cat and then the mouse runs through traffic and leaves. And then the middle is just 7 minutes of them eating. And it's just like, is there anything else? You just keep watching like gags about them eating. And it's just like, I don't think that this was what the original fable was really about. I don't think it's about them eating food. I think it was supposed to be a moral tale about how, well, I did read up on like the original fable and how like it was supposed to be a warning how like being comfortable in the countryside is better than living in fear in the city or something like that. But here it's just like, oh, let's just have mice eat food for a bit. And it's like most shorts like this, and there have been other shorts featuring this kind of concept where it's just like there are mice and there's a cat that can come and eat them at any point. And we haven't even gotten to Tom and Jerry at this point, which is spoilers. Tom and Jerry is a big thing for this category in the 40s and 50s. But yeah, this short, like, it does have a cat at the end, and most shorts like it would have a significant portion of it be about the cat trying to get the mouse. But this one just doesn't seem interested in that. Like I said, it just seems to really want to show them eating. It's just like, why? Why?
The one thing I would note, though, that stood out for me in a positive way was is it Harleen, the Lee Harleen score, I quite liked. I thought it does have this really fun, peppy attitude to it. And I think he really gets across that sense of childlike wonderment without overselling it.
Oh yeah, it's like these silly symphony shorts are kind of, or at least were originally meant to be built around the music, and even as they drifted away from that, they still do have a lot of really great music in it. And just like that Disney workhorse is just like, it still produces some good music and stuff. And something since we're sharing things we liked, I did enjoy that last minute with the cat and then like with the mouse running through traffic. I thought that was like a really great, well put together sequence there. I just wish there was kind of more of it.
Yes, it ends up feeling insubstantial, even though because of I know the studio system is controversial and it was horrific on a workers' rights level. I am not condoning that. But as you pointed out, part of that sort of workhorse mentality meant that you had these incredible, top-notch craftspeople working on all sorts of different projects. And so you can get something that, yes, this was an Oscar-winning shot. I'm sure it was a big deal. But I still feel like today the standards have slipped and you're not getting quality scores in something this small.
I'm also kind of wondering, like, so in terms of like the historical aspect for Disney at this time, this is when like production really was getting going for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, their first big animated feature-length film. And so I'm just kind of wondering if, like, since all of their top craftspeople were busy focusing on that massive thing, it's just like their shorts kind of suffered at this time because that wasn't their top priority. So it's just like they just kind of like just throw out a short where mice are eating for a bit. It's just like, you know, don't put much thought into it. Your efforts are needed over here, but we still need to pump out these shorts.
Perhaps, but no, I will just note at this point, I am really glad that you are getting me to watch these because there is so much creativity in a lot of these shots and it just consolidated into these incredibly small projects that I would say definitely are viewed by more people than, say, short films for adults, which have an incredibly small target demographic, you could say, in terms of their viewership. But I just really appreciate the fact that there is so much zaniness on display and so many unexpected directions that these stories go in. Not specifically with this shot, but I think it is a reminder that at this time, they were really a hotbed of creativity, the people who were putting these shots together, and they were just innovating constantly. And I'm sure you still get that, but I know today you get complaints about the fact that even Pixar films are starting to feel a bit repetitive in terms of their messaging and how they are put together. And I think just going back and seeing the genesis of the incredibly popular, financially successful animated films that we see today is fascinating. And I almost wish that some of the modern films were more haphazard, but contained a streak of that wild creativity.
Yeah, that I've mentioned on the previous episodes, but that is kind of like why I really want to do this. It's to introduce people to this fascinating history of animation that is often just kind of overlooked. Like people just kind of think, like, okay, Disney did all of this, and now we're here at the modern day. And it's just like, and while at this point in history, we are focusing a lot on Disney since Disney won the first 10 or so years of this category. But as this podcast is going to go on, I'm so excited to just like show all these hidden corners of animation that have been forgotten by pretty much everyone. I'm happy to have you on again and again, just so I can show you more and more of these shorts. And some of them will be great, some of them will be awful, but that's the fun ride of it. And I feel like that's a good point to transition to our next nominee, The Old Mill Pond, directed by Hugh Harman. This is the second nomination for Hugh Harman and Rudolph Ising and their Happy Harmony series. This is not to be confused with The Old Mill, which is an Oscar-winning silly symphony short from the following year. And despite their very similar titles, they are quite different. For one, this includes a pond, and the other doesn't. And this film also depicts caricatures of various Black musicians and performers from the time period, except as frogs. And you might be wondering yourself, 1930s cartoon featuring caricatures of Black people, that sounds like it would be racist. And you would be right. Despite, or perhaps along with portraying the artists as frogs, the short still finds ways to add plenty of references to minstrelsy. And while the short still features some fun moments of song and dance, perhaps, and is far from the worst of what this time period had in terms of racist cartoons, it is still, in fact, disgusting. And I think I've hogged this soapbox long enough, Zita. Tell me what you thought.
No, completely agree with you. It's horrific. You get people who go, oh, well, everyone felt that way at the time and it was just normal, so you have to contextualize it. But this short really has no redeeming features, I would say. It does nothing special to distinguish it. And so the ugliness of the racism on display only becomes more overt. And it's just horrific to see these incredible talents like Ethel Waters and like Louis Armstrong being demeaned in this way. And it's just horrific. It's really awful to watch. And they absolutely did not deserve this. And I know you'll get people who say, oh, you're just getting up on a soapbox and saying this in a performative virtue signaling way, but I don't see how anyone could watch this and think, yeah, that's fine the way they're being treated. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and like seeing something like this makes me think of. So, are you familiar with the Betty Boop shorts that feature Cab Calloway? Like, there's a mini moocher, and like it. There's a strong contrast between like that kind of short and something like this, because like over in those Betty Boop shorts, it's like there is a more clear kind of respect for the craftsmanship of these artists, and like how like great their music is and the influence that they have on music as a whole and everything that they do. And it's just like the shorts are built around to like celebrate their work and stuff. But something like this, it doesn't feel like it's meant to kind of celebrate these artists. It's just meant to kind of mock them and stuff. Like, and it's just like, and like looking at like kind of like the advertising for these shorts, it's meant to, they're promoting it as like, oh, listen to this fun music and stuff. But when you're watching it, it's just like, yeah, there's the music, but then it's just like the visuals accompanying it is just awful. Well, it's awful. That's all there is to say. It's just awful. It this kind of short is what makes me kind of regret doing this podcast in the first place. It's just like I don't want to have to drag a guest through shorts like these, and unfortunately, there's a few more coming down the line, especially in the 1940s.
I
But
guess the only thing is, you hope maybe if someone were unlucky enough to see it, it would at least encourage them to seek out the incredible work produced by these artists in different mediums, in non-racist pieces of art. You hope that would happen. But other than that, I only think it has any real value as a documentation of how racism really just seeped into every facet of entertainment. And even this supposedly light, frivolous cartoon short is horrifying.
mhm. I kind of want to just move on so we could stop
Yes.
thinking about
Yes.
this.
Oh,
And because our next short is also much, much better. So our third and final nominee is Popeye the Sailor meets Sinbad the Sailor, directed by Dave Fleischer. And we were just talking about him with his great Betty Boop shorts. And this is the first nomination for Max Fleischer and Fleischer Studios, who made films for Paramount. This is also the first and only nomination for Popeye the Sailor, and is the first of 3 so-called Popeye color features, all of which were adaptations of stories from 1001 Nights. There's Sinbad, and then next is Alibaba, and then the third one is an Aladdin story. And this short specifically, as the title suggests, features Popeye the Sailor Man landing on the island of Sinbad the Sailor, and they compete to see who is the greatest sailor. Zita, what do you think of our final nominee?
I think this was probably the most fun to watch of the 3, where the complaints that I had about the winner that we discussed don't really apply to this one, where yes, it is a featherweight plot, and it's not as though you're thinking, oh god, I'm really emotionally invested in Popeye's character arc here, and gosh, this is searing. I'm walking away from this feeling as though he's completely changed my view on an important social issue. But I think it's really satisfying on a basic level as the stuff of comedy. And I think the writers seem to have a real understanding of the appeal of these characters, where I don't think they try to inflate their personalities too much. That could sound like I'm just an idiot who can't appreciate complex characterization, but I sort of liked the fact that here they are used as representatives of certain personality traits instead of feeling like believable, three-dimensional, well-rounded human beings who just so happen to be in a cartoon. And I think it works really well for something that's meant to be this short, this punchy, and this eye-popping.
It's funny that you emphasize like this is short, even though like this is probably one of the longer nominees in this category.
Okay, yes,
because it
but
is, I think it's like 16 minutes long.
yes.
But yes, it is still like a short film, and it's like keeps and but I really love this short. I think that one, the animation itself is just so beautiful. Like this was supposed to be kind of like a special event or something for like the Popeye cartoon. So it's just like it's completely in color, and two, it's like it uses a lot of like the big techniques that Fleischer had developed over the years, and like puts them all together in this one space. Specifically, it's the setback camera, I think it's what it's called, where it's like they build these like 3D miniature environments, and then have like a special setup in order to put the animation cells in the environment. And so like you see like these long pan shots of like Popeye or whoever walking through this like massive cavern, and it it is so impressive, and it's so eye-catching, and just just all around, I think the animation on all the different characters and animals and stuff is just really good and really engaging and stuff. And plus, like as you were saying, the personalities are just so fun to watch. And it's just like this is kind of for me at least, this is kind of near the peak of like what these kind of 1930s character shorts could be, or like what they should be. And I'm not the only one who thinks this. Like looking at the Wikipedia page and stuff, there is a lot of like this short appears on like a lot of like best animated shorts ever kind of compilation lists. It's like it's beloved by everyone, as it's lasted in time as like one of the definitive shorts from this time period. I think it's even in the national it's in the Library of Congress as like something historically significant. And I gotta agree, this is just a really great short in my opinion. Plus the song in it that they sing, or the songs, are really fun too, I think.
Yes, it's extremely well crafted, and I think the technology is put to good use. You definitely get the feeling that, yes, they're trying to show off, ooh, we can do all of these new things, but it's not the animated short equivalent of The Robe, where the whole movie exists to show off, ooh, we're using Cinerama. I think this is, even without all of the technological innovations, the writing and
Mhm.
just the base level talent on display would be enough to get it by. And I think the addition of all of that added creativity and sort of efforts to elevate it beyond what had come before really make it something special.
Oh, definitely. Like it's still just like a great Popeye short that just happens to also have all these other great aspects to it. uh yeah, this is just a phenomenal short that, like, I like, while the previous short made me regret doing this podcast, this one makes me so glad I'm doing this podcast, just so I can one revisit this and this kind of these kind of great shorts, and two, just share them with other people because like even though this is one of the more famous and popular shorts, there's still a lot of people who know nothing about this kind of thing. So it's just like, let's get more people to know about Popeye the Sailor meets Sinbad the Sailor. Uh, do you have any other thoughts on this short?
No, not really. I think we're both sort of over the moon about it. So,
All right. So now that we've gone through and talked about the three nominees, let's rank them. Zita, start us off with your number three.
so my number three, unexpectedly, is the Old Mill Pond.
Yeah, I think we're going to be pretty in line with our rank of the three. So yeah, the Old Mill Pond comes in at number three for me as well. It's bad, it's racist, uh, and then I assume we both have the Country Cousin at number two because
Yes.
it's kind of boring and vapid, but at least it's not racist. Though
Yes.
you can make the argument that it's prejudice against like rural people or something, like the hillbillies and stuff. Um, and then, of course, number one, the amazing Popeye the Sailor meets Sinbad the Sailor, which one is a cartoon that has some sense of a plot and motion and good animation, but also is just a really, really great short. Probably one of the best ones that we've covered so far. I think the only one, at least at this point in the podcast, that I've liked more than this was The Three Little Pigs, which was your previous episode that we talked about. So you kind of got like both the highs and lows of this podcast,
Ah, yes.
at least in these early days.
No, it is a shame that racism has to be a recurring theme, but I guess it does at least provide an opportunity to talk about this historical ill and to dissect the ways in which Hollywood was screwed up during this period.
Yeah, it's just like I'm doing this podcast to like show the history of animation, and when you show the history of animation, you really need to talk about the dark stuff. It's just like Like there's a lot of bad things that are in animation history, and luckily it's like at least you don't have to go through like the infamous censored 11 of like those Warner Brothers cartoons. Like not, I don't think any of those were nominated, but I'm pretty sure none of those were nominated. But there's still some other bad films that we have seen and that are coming up. But yeah, it's unfortunate, but it needs to be talked about, because like if you don't talk about it, it pretends like it never existed and lets these people go like unaccountable. And so yeah. But before we end our show, are there any final thoughts you'd like to share, Zita, or anything you'd like to promote?
Well, I could just say briefly again talk about my podcast. So, 300 Passions. Jackie has been a guest multiple times, one of my favorites. And we talk about romantic movies. Some of them are awful, unfortunately, from the list that I'm drawing from. But in most cases, the quality of the film itself does not matter, because Jackie and I find other topics to talk about. So,
Like even when we like the film, like our most recent episode on the Love Parade,
yes,
we still that one ended up like over 2 hours, I think.
we got sidetracked.
Yeah.
It's fair to say.
I need to go back on that podcast, on your podcast again. It's been a while.
You should, yes. What could we discuss?
I for those who don't know, on her podcast, I'm trying to get a film from each decade that is available. Well, and so I think I still have the 40s left to do. So we'll try and find something from then.
Okay, good. A Greer Garson picture.
Oh, maybe not. I'm not sure if I want to do a bad movie.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll talk about it off of this on our own time. But well, thank you, Zita, for coming on the show, and thank you, listener, for tuning in. This has been the Short Podcast about short films. Until next time, goodbye.